Hello, my friends. We are live once again for the next Saturday show. We have a special edition of what I like to call the International Leftist Coalition. You guys know what I try to do, especially on this channel, is try to give voice to many different perspectives. Especially as someone who's been going through the journey, as someone
You guys
who
know
go through a
what I
lot of
try to
U.S.
do,
propaganda.
especially
Hold on, let me fix the audio here. As someone who had to go through a lot of U.S. propaganda, I've been trying to learn like what the best way to be a true leftist. And I personally define that as anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist. Everyone had their own different definitions, but I think that's a pretty good vague term. We'll have your thoughts on that as well. But even among the black left, you guys notice if you've been following the channel, we're not not a monolith. Like there's even differing opinions among black leftists, and I think as a movement, we should try to take different perspectives and evolve our activism, evolve our leftism the best we can. So I'm glad to have Doctor Luna Oy on. Correct? I want to make sure I can put respect on your name. Right? Did I get that right?
Doctor on US UK studies.
I saw that you had your doctor. I was like, oh, that's super dope because on my International Leftist Coalition, I have Dr. Kareem
uh,
Batesh, Dr. Peter Beatty. They are University of Hong Kong. So it's like I love talking to people that and you specialize in U.S. politics and UK politics. That's what I saw, and that's very interesting. But I spoke enough. I would love to have the chance for you to introduce yourself for anyone who may not be familiar with your work. Like, what is your perspective? What are you trying to do with your channel, Luna?
Hi everybody, it's my honor to be here to have a chance to talk to you guys. I am Luna. I'm a Vietnamese communist born and living in Vietnam. And I have my YouTube channel named Luna Ơi. You can check out it on YouTube. I do video where I teach you how to cook Vietnamese food, and also also do traveling vlogs, and of course I talk about politics, and I focus very much on the history of Vietnam, because it is the thing that like I saw that a lot of people, especially in the West, you don't really know much about the history of our people, our country from our perspective, and I am very happy to be open to you guys about the country that I am living in. Yeah, so nice to meet you all.
Yeah, I'm super happy to have you on the show because I've been doing my best to try and learn a lot about different international struggles, and I would love to have your take on this because when I look at the problem of global capitalism and U.S. imperialism, I don't see any way we tackle this without some sort of international leftist coalition, anti-war, anti-imperialist coalition. When I say that, I'll be honest, I don't even know who that looks like yet. I don't know what it would take to get there. That's why I like at least introducing this conversation because it's something that I mostly want to focus on is tackling U.S. empire, and I'm trying to learn more about Vietnam in particular because Vietnam, um, I try to use the word success very carefully because it was the result of a lot of human suffering and death toll. But
Yeah,
Vietnam started off with U.S. imperialism, so I try to be careful. I don't want to use the term success because it came at a high cost, right?
I know. Yes.
And I want to love to get your perspective more on this because I don't know that much about the region. But as an American, growing up in our public education system, I had to pretty much unlearn everything. You mentioned this, and this is kind of your goal. You want to debunk mainstream propaganda that's about your country. And I'm gonna give you an example of one.
Mm.
When growing up, they used to tell me all the time the Vietnam War ended because our politicians was responsive to the American anti-war movement. And I was like, oh, our politicians listen to us. We was in the streets. That is not true, apparently. And I would love to get your thoughts on this. The United States did not leave Vietnam because they were listening to anti-war protesters. They left Vietnam because they got their ass handed to them. So I would love your thoughts on that. What's the real background behind the conflict in Vietnam? If you want something up, I would love to give you that toss up.
Yeah. So my family's history like got involved directly in this Vietnam War. Actually, we called it the American War in Vietnamese. My grandpa, the father of my dad, joined the NLF, the National Liberation Front, and he was a communist fighter, and he went to the south and he died in 1968 in the Tet Offensive. So I like have the direct connection with the Vietnam War. And the thing is that like actually I just found out, I just realized in the last few years when I started my channel is that you in America, you were taught that the American actually like didn't lose the war,
Yeah,
or
I
like it
didn't
was
know
just
that.
a police action.
It wasn't too recent. Like literally, yeah, I'm embarrassed to say it wasn't too literally a few years ago that I'm like, oh, they lost. That's they. There was a lot of guerrilla tactics, and I'm not an expert, but it's like a lot of things that the United States Army and military wasn't prepared for. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this some more. But the raw revolutionary spirit that the
Yeah.
Vietnamese soldiers had, so they're fighting for their homeland. Meanwhile,
Yes.
you had U.S. soldiers who they would see this is one thing I do know. There would be Vietnamese people that would have like posters that would say, "Hey, why are you guys even here?" They're trying
Yeah,
to
exactly.
break.
Why are you here? Why are you
Yeah,
even
do you want
here?
to explain more about that? Like, because that was like a campaign that they used, and a lot of U.S.
Yes.
soldiers started questioning, like, what are we
Yes.
doing? So, if you have one side that is extremely passionate about defending your homeland, and then you have some people there are a lot of war criminals on this side as well, but there are a lot of people on this U.S. side that are like, man, I was lied to. So there's not the
Yes.
same kind of fighting style. But anyway, Luna, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, absolutely. So there are many things that Vietnamese people had to sacrifice and many strategies and tactics that we used during the Vietnam War. On one hand, millions of Vietnamese rose up and fought for our self-determination and freedom and reunification. After the Vietnam War, over 2 million Vietnamese citizens died and over 1 million Vietnamese soldiers, communist soldiers, died, and over 2 million people got exposed to Agent Orange. And the total Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, there are total to this day over more 4 million victims of Agent Orange. And every single year, there are still thousands of children born with birth defect from that chemical warfare. So it is really a, a, a genocide, literally a genocide
Yes.
against Vietnamese people, Laotian, and Cambodian people. The thing is that like yes, we Vietnamese people, we do appreciate and we are very thankful for all the anti-war movement, all the protesters in the U.S. who protested and sacrificed their life to try to call for the anti-war movement and call for protest. And we know about that. We have a whole museum advocated for, like we show all the pictures and all the gifts and all the letters that our friends from all over the world, especially from the USA, send us to support, to show their support, you know, and we are all thankful for that. But the thing is that like to say that a bunch of protests, anti-war protests, ended the Vietnam War, this is an attempt to whitewash our own history because millions of Vietnamese people, including my own grandpa, died for it. And this is the thing that the way that like the USA, they trying to whitewash our own history and to push white supremacism in there because okay, they act like okay, the USA started this war, but the USA also ended this war. So actually, at the end of the day, you are the good guys, and I want to fight against this false narratives. And it doesn't mean that I don't respect and I don't feel thankful for all people who protested against that, but we have to be nuanced about this. And again, it's like a racism against Vietnamese people because it doesn't matter. Millions of Vietnamese rose up and fought against the U.S. imperialism. It was a matter of like few thousand Americans who protested against it. So this is a very dangerous kind of narrative that I want to fight against. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I dumped everything I learned in school. Like they lied. Everything you learn about Black history in America is lied about. So once I realized they lied about MLK, once I realized they lied about Malcolm X, I'm like, okay, I figured they lied about all the other revolutionary movements. Then I realized they lied about Cuba. Then I learned they lied about Castro, lied about Vietnam. It's over and over. And you got to learn that we are the most propagandized country. Like it's the messaging doesn't even make sense, and this is why I still try so show solidarity for people who are victims of U.S. imperialism. This is why I implore leftists to do because there's been a long-standing tradition a lot of black leftists showing solidarity and having anti-war sentiments.
Yes.
Obviously, MLK famously spoke out
Yes.
against the Vietnam
Yes.
War. The Black Panthers show global
Yes.
solidarity against apartheid, and my message is trying to get people back to that. And that's why what
Exactly.
you do is important because I'm learning from people like you, just like I expect people to learn from black leftists when we explain our struggles as well. And this is why I don't even demonize identity politics because this is what identity politics is supposed to be about. The Democratic Party bastardized that term, but identity politics is supposed to be a term of solidarity. Like as a black man in the United States, this is my struggle. This is what we went through. This is the pain my people suffered under U.S. empire. And now I'm speaking to a Vietnamese economist, and we can see we got a lot in common. We got a common
Exactly.
enemy. And I would love to look. I'm gonna talk to Luna more about that. But that's the power of what identity politics is supposed to be about. And now you guys see why the liberal class hijacked it. When you had the liberal class hijack and say, "Oh, voting for a cop as vice president, this is what identity politics is about." That serves two purposes. Not only does it serve their agenda, but it is used to defang something that is legitimately powerful in building communities with people. Right, Luna? Do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
Yes, I want to say real quick about this. Like, lots of people keep criticizing about the eat poor, the identity politics. But my stance on it is like, our identity politics is so powerful, it's so strong that we, based on that identity politics, we share our like background, and then we share our foundation, and we have a solidarity with each other. But because it's that strong that liberals took our identity politics and changed it into liberal identity politics, and I just hate this so much. Like those liberals, they use identity politics and then they just use it to maintain the status quo. And it's just like, like we usually make memes, but it tells the truth about like, instead of stopping the bombing on, the West Asia, they just paint the LGBTQ flags on that bomb. It says a lot about the liberal identity politics. They use our identity politics for the status quo and to maintain the imperialism, and that is very disgusting too.
Yeah, and that's why they're extremely dangerous, and that's
Yes.
why I think it's important for us to continue to call these people out and make the distinctions because when I see people rail against identity politics, I know where they're coming from because when it comes from the Democratic Party, it's gross and disgusting because everyone know that they're full of it, right?
Yeah.
So the culture war that's going on right now that's driving me crazy is when you have the Democratic Party pretend that they're the party that understands critical race theory. And now there's a lot of vitriol against critical race theory because now people are like, it's just liberal bullshit. No, it's a critique of a class, capital, and the systems itself. So if you actually support critical race theory, you wouldn't support someone like Joe Biden. You wouldn't support the Democratic Party because it's about the critiques of the institutions. And you see how they hijack that and they move it into to support their imperialist capitalist goals, right?
Yes, totally agree with you.
Yeah, so one thing that they always do, and this is what the biggest problem with the Democratic Party is their ability to kill movements. And that is the party is where movements go to die. Like we had a giant anti-war movement that started under Barack Obama in 2008, and then Barack Obama was elected, and people went back to brunch, and now the anti-war movement was killed. There was a giant anti-immigration movement that started when Donald Trump was elected, then Joe Biden became president, and all of a sudden that movement was killed. So that is the difference between someone who's actually anti-war, anti-imperialist, and what we stand for, right? But I do want to get to the super chat. We had super chat. I do want to get a shout out to Nolly. Thanks for the $2 as well. Let's see what here it is. We have this one for Sam. Been following Luna. Luna clowned on armchair historian. Well, what's the background behind that? Since you clowned on this guy, armchair historian. What's the story behind that, Luna?
Here, I will give you a short version of it, a short history of it. So, about a while ago, Armchair Historian, a very famous history channel, YouTube channel, they made a video talking about the Vietnam War in the North Vietnamese perspective. And I saw that people were like, oh wow, a white channel talking about the Vietnam War from the North Vietnamese perspective. So I was very curious and I watched the video. It was like, this is white people's perspective on the Vietnam War. This is nothing like North Vietnamese perspective. I am literally the North Vietnamese, like whose my grandpa died in that war. So it's like this is, and lots of people watch that video, and lots of people, especially people who don't know better from the West, if I don't say anything about this, they would just see that. They would just take this as a fact. That is how the North think about the Vietnam War, our own freaking war. So that was why I had to make a video to, like, to respond to that video of Armchair Historian. The thing is that, like, I usually don't want to do response video because, like, it's very traumatizing to me because I am a woman of color from Global South, and whenever I dare to criticize any Westerner, especially white people, I always got bombarded with racism and sexism from all over the world. So like I barely do any kind of response video like that. But like that video was so bad that I had to stand up.
Was it just like filled with lies, U.S. propaganda? What was
Yeah.
your biggest criticism?
Armchair Historian still try to be nuanced in the sense that like both sides bad. Okay? So to try to paint Vietnamese as like bloodthirsty people who did that. Like, dude, all we did was just stand up and protect our own self-determination. Why did you even hear the U.S. like troops like, and we just protected ourselves, and now you paint us as like evil commie. Like what? And the disgusting thing is that he undermined communism too, because he half-quoted Ho Chi Minh. You know that Ho Chi Minh in 1962 he wrote a very famous article named "The Path That Led Me to Leninism." In that article, Ho Chi Minh said, "At first, it was communism that inspired me to liberate the Vietnamese war," something like that. But actually, time after time, step by step, it was communism, it was Leninism that showed me the way to truly liberate our people. So, Armchair Historian, he's half-quoted it. And he said like, oh, Ho Chi Minh said at first it was nationalism. At first it was nationalism, not yet communism, blah, blah. So he painted, he painted Ho Chi Minh was a total nationalist, like just equal to white nationalist. And that was that like communism was bad. Like, dude, you have quoted Ho Chi Minh in a very disgusting way. Then like Ho Chi Minh said, like, oh yes, at first it was nationalism, not yet communism, but time after time, step by step, it was Leninism and communism that showed me the way to save our country. And Armchair Historian also didn't know anything, didn't know the difference between white nationalism and left-wing nationalism. And he tried to equate them two as the same. So means like black nationalism, Vietnamese nationalism, and Asian nationalism, just exactly like fascist nationalism, and try to paint us like that. And
if you don't mind, just for the sake of this audience and for education, do you want to explain the fallacy that he laid out when he was trying to tie all those together?
So these are the most
I'm not trying to put you on
common.
the spot, but I would love to dive into this. But
Yes. So here's the thing: white people, most of them don't understand, as I said, the difference between right-wing nationalism and left-wing nationalism. Right-wing nationalism, as you know it, is the sense of like when white people think that they are superior and they have the right to rule over other country and to enslave other country. That is white nationalism. We, left-wing nationalism, liberation nationalism, believe that we are equal and we deserve to be treated equally. We deserve to have our self-determination and freedom and independence. We do not think that we are superior. We do not want to rule over other country. We just want to be equal. And that is left-wing nationalism. And that was usually the thing that inspired, mostly for example, Vietnamese war inspired Vietnamese war to rise up and fight against colonialism and fascism to seek for our own self-determination. But white people, they usually don't understand this. all their whole life, they just face white nationalism. So they think that all nationalism are like right-wing nationalism, are like white nationalism. So they usually paint Ho Chi Minh and all the nation of Vietnam as like, oh, we're just all nationalists. And that was why they undermine communism. They undermine our true spirit of fighting. They're just like, oh, you're nationalist, so that's why you're bad. Like, dude, you don't know nothing about our nationalism, yet you're so bold and you're so arrogant.
Yeah, they're Western chauvinists. They don't even consider that way, because the way you put it was perfect. That's why I wanted you to explain it. That's the perfect way to put it. And I remember someone explained this to me before, and I'm just sharing my perspective, especially as a Black American. I don't know what country I came from. They stole me from my lands. So, and then I look at our country and the trauma they put on my people. In my mindset, there's no reason to be patriotic to this country. So I remember I asked someone before, because this is the only perspective I knew. So I asked people like, why are there like socialists in the global South that are super patriotic to this country? I legitimately didn't understand it, because I'm not used to having that. And then someone explained it to me in a very similar way. Like, if you're from, like, just for example, if you're from Cuba and you are losing billions of dollars because of the Cuban embargo, and you got the entire Western neoliberal establishment fighting your country, of course you will have a sense of patriotism to your country, because you're defending your homeland. Like, if you're Vietnamese, like Luna saying, this is why I can't even wrap my mind behind the argument he was using, because if you're being invaded, like, you're defending your land. So I don't understand how anyone could even.
They slaughter our own people. What else do we have to do? Of course, we stand up and fight to death.
Yeah, this is why, that's kind of when I started noticing your channel, because we've been speaking out against Western chauvinism. I've been openly critical of the police state, capitalism, and imperialism as a whole, and I honestly do believe they're this new op where you have these people who pretend to be socialists and communists in order to convince Gen Z, in order to set more CIA pro-Western chauvinist talking points. And I remember one of the first like real dog piles on that I saw that was pretty ridiculous. Like, I don't know if you want to talk about it, if you don't, feel free, if you don't want to like comment more on it. But like, when Voss was going after you for debunking U.S. imperialist talking points. So once again, I don't want to pigeonhole you in this conversation, but this is just another example of stuff I've seen that go on, like the anger and harassment that Voss and his fans gave you for just simply disagreeing with them on global politics and debunking their talking points. Meanwhile, what I find extremely interesting is that Voss could have debates with Charlie Kirk, an insane fucking neocon, and then he's 100% friendly with the neocon that has strong quote unquote disagreements with him. He's friendly with Charlie Kirk, but when he goes against Luna Oy, he has extreme hatred. So I would love to see what is that, guys. I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm gonna ask you guys, what do you guys think that is? Luna, do you have anything you want to add to that? I don't want to get you in trouble.
It is a whole. It's not about any personal phenomenon at all, because this is a thing that it is a systemic problem that I've been dealing with for years, literally since day one when I started my channel. Like, this is a problem about the systemic racism that is running against people of color and marginalized people and lots of white people. I don't know that they know about it, or they just like accidentally did it, but this says a lot about how deep their indoctrination, how deep their racism is in white people's mind. They don't even know about it, because sometimes they just think about things and they say things without even knowing that, hey, that's racist. Yeah. And when we point that out, when actually people like me point that out, they just like, instead of just stop for a fucking minute and think about that and maybe like, hey, maybe they're right, maybe I'm racist. No, they immediately like try to defend their racism. And
then they call us divisive. That's what they
exactly.
Do. Like, if we are not okay with the racism of the white left, then we're called out as being divisive. Yes. But go ahead, Luna. I just want to add that point, because that's another tactic they use.
Yes, exactly. Like the double tactic. They are the abuser, but when they got called out for it, they just turn around and act like they are actually victims. And I'm done with this because, like, you know what? Like, why do I have to deal with this? Because,
You don't. You don't.
exactly. And, like, I mean, I would never stop fighting it because, like, fighting against chauvinism, white supremacism, imperialism, colonialism runs in my family. It runs in my country. So I will never stop doing that. And I will never scared of doing that. And I would try, my point is that, like, trying to make a space, a leftist space, a leftist movement that is safe for people of color and marginalized people. And we have to try to fight against bigotry, racism, sexism, chauvinism in our space. And the thing is that, like, since I am not white, since we are not white, the only thing that I can do is to point out all of those problems. And the actual job belongs to another white people who understand this. You, if you're white, and if you agree with us, with me, it is your job to try to communicate somehow to other white people to make them understand the deep problem that they have and try to fix it. It's already painful enough for me to have to point that out. Like, I do not want to show all the harassment that I have, but sometimes I have to. Because if I don't show it, nobody would understand it. Nobody would see it.
Yeah, you
And
gotta say something about it eventually. It just spreads. It's put the spotlight on it. It shows them the mirror that they don't want to see. Like Vosh and the ilk and the people I seen harass you. They would demonize like the right wing. Like they would demonize like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, but they don't realize they're doing the same exact thing. They are
same,
imitating
exactly.
the same tactics of the oppressor.
Yeah, those people that claim that they are better than Nazis because they are ex-Nazis. But I mean,
They had a Nazi phase. Everyone just had that Nazi phase when they're 14. Like, what? That's not normal, guys.
and the thing is that, like, the thing that make me is like laugh but sad at the same time is that, like, why do you in the West you usually praise people who say, "Oh, I was just a Nazi last month, but now I'm a leftist." Go listen to me, like, dude, being an ex-Nazi is the very, very least thing that you can do. Okay, I'm grateful for that, but it doesn't mean that we should welcome you with open arms. Meanwhile, I've been living in my country. I've been a communist since, I guess, the day I was born because my dad is also a communist. And you undermine my words. Like, literally, I am like a leftist for decades. So why do I have to listen to ex-Nazi who just like last month? And I still cannot wrap my head around that kind of mindset of those
Yeah, you,
people
you see
over
the
there.
ego, and you see the ego, and that's the white saviorism that I've been talking about. You look at the mindset that we have here. We're a channel that's trying to build community. I'm dead serious when I say I would love to build international leftist coalition. And I know, like, as someone who was a victim of U.S. propaganda, as someone who started getting good politics only a few years ago, I try to maintain and try to stay humble and realize the things I still got to learn more about. Like I'm still learning the history of like the CIA attacks in the global South. I'm learning more about the U.S. imperialism against Vietnam and the Eastern Hemisphere. So it's just if you're truly a leftist, if you're truly about building community, there's not supposed to be this giant ego where you're like everyone follow me, and that's the mentality that a lot of these streamers I see attack you have, where they see any other perspective, they're like, all right, let's demonize them as the other. They must have nefarious intentions instead of like, all right, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Let's see if I can learn something from you. That's a completely different tactic that they have, and I think it's used purposely to divide because I've been stopped giving these people benefit of the doubt. And one of the reasons why I want to talk to you, and one of the reasons I have people, and we have Josana from Brazil. I talked to Dr. Karim Patesh and Peter Beatty out of Hong Kong, Dr. Saul Rod, who do great work in the Middle East, is because I want to learn more and get more perspective from other lefties because I think that's important. And instead of just being like, oh, follow me, follow this top down organization model, and you will be okay, right? So I want to ask you about this because this is something that I saw, and I want to dive a little bit more into your work here. I want to explain this. What's this project you've been working on here? I see this tweet that you put out. Great news. I
Oh,
basically I want to get. I would love to hear more explanation of this. Go ahead. Feel free to take over at any time. But
sure,
what
sure.
exactly is this that you're working on here?
Sure, sure. So, you just so you know, I study Marxism, Leninism in schools from like very early age. I literally study about from age according to your ability to age according to your need. When I was like 14 year in middle school, so like how this is how I am very familiar with the theory and the ideology of Marxism, Leninism, and just not just me, but like the millions of Vietnamese students like that, and so when I started my channel and I had my video series named The Dialectical Materialism, How to Think Like a Vietnamese Communist, I found out that lots of people, especially from the English-speaking sphere, you don't know about this. Most what you learn about Marxism was from like you self-study. You just read a bunch of books, collection of books from Marx and Lenin and Engels and other people too, and then you come up with the idea and the theory and the knowledge inside your own mind, and it's I think I see that is a little bit problematic because each of you will have their a different way of achieving the knowledge. So like there would be like like some of course you will self study like that. You will have a lot of hardship. Meanwhile in Vietnam we had a whole curriculum
I
of
wish.
a whole
I
curriculum
wish.
of Marxism and Leninism that we teach like for like millions of Vietnamese kids, like, and we all like the thing is that like it is just a very simple version of Marxism and Leninism that like we took out the best part, the core values, the core theory of Marxism and Leninism, and we put it in a very systematic way. So it's easier for beginner to study about this very complicated and difficult ideology. So I decided to translate my textbook of Marxism Leninism. And the thing is that like the reason why it took me over a year, nearly a year and a half to translate this, it is because you know that, as I said, we study this ideology since like schools, middle schools. So lots of the thing in the book, the book took it for granted. There was no like clear explanation or examples. So like it took me about 3 or 4 months to translate the actual book, but the rest of that for a year, I had to write the annotation, right? Because I had to, act like I'm a lecturer to you, and then I have to explain those. When the book said this, it means this, and these are the all examples that you can try to really understand it. And the book is like 99.9% finished. I would just need to write the preface and the afterface, and then be done. So hopefully, within like a week, the book will be published.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's quality work. Because something that we've been talking about on the channel is breaking the anti-intellectualism that's on in the United States right now, especially on the U.S. level. People, their theory of change is, oh, we just vibe. Let's get together, let's vibe, and we figure it out. Like, no, you gotta have a plan of attack, and this is something that I realized as someone who's been misled. Like, I've been misled many times. Like, once again, why I used to believe in taking over the Democratic Party. Like, that's because I didn't have proper revolutionary discipline. And when you talk about these important ideas, it's important for us to really debunk everything that we learned from, like, so as someone coming from the States, everything they taught us was garbage. That's why I said I wish, because in our schools they don't even teach us about Marxism. Like, what they tell you about communism is a joke. When they talk about communism, like, oh yeah, this is their system. You got capitalism. Capitalism is great. Capitalism leads to prosperity. Then you have this other system, communism, that leads to death and destruction. That's what they teach us in school, Luna. I am dead serious. Everything I learned, and this is why there's this struggle on the left. Everything that we learn, we have to do our own research. Like, we got Google state and revolution, and then we gotta read it, and then we gotta find a way to interpret it and try to make sure to apply it to modern times. Just actually, it's very hard. It's very hard, especially going through years
And
and
the
years
thing is
of
that like even if you go to Google, you're gonna go to Wikipedia.
yeah, that's
And
exactly. That's the
lots.
problem, and I'm very honest about my route because I've been trying my best to parse the information the best I can, the best I can. And there's some interpretations I used to have. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not true, and it's tough. That's why it's good to have people that like actually get the knowledge. And if I don't do everything again, and like if I ever had kids, I'm telling them I'm not educating them here. Like anything they teach them here is garbage. I have to pretty much relearn everything from like 22 onward. Anything they tell you is false. Anything they tell us about Vietnam was false. Everything they tell us about Marxism is false, right?
Yeah. The sad thing is that like lots of people attack me and my books that haven't even published yet, and they already straight up said that it's a state propaganda. Like those people, they never even, the book hasn't even published yet, so like they have no proof. They just talk out of their ass, and is another attempt to try to undermine the works of Vietnamese communists. The best Vietnamese philosophers sit together and work with like the USSR like philosophers too, try to come up with the very simple but the best version of dialectical materialism, and especially of course like the whole Marxism, Leninism, so even beginners can understand. And the thing is that like those people, they just, as I said, they just talk out of their ass, but they have no proof. They can't read Vietnamese, and it is the first time that this book was translated. And it tells me a lot about this is just pure projection, because I think that because their education system is indoctrinating system. So they believe that the whole world is like that. And actually, the Marxism-Leninism curriculum book in Vietnam, it has nothing to do with praising the Communist Party of Vietnam or something. It's just like pure knowledge about, okay, this is a basic principle of Marxism-Leninism. Okay, now you learn about dialectical materialism. Now you learn about historical materialism. Now you learn about scientific socialism and then political economics. That's it. It's just that. It's just knowledge. And of course, a bunch of white chauvinists just like debunk me using
Debunk, quote unquote.
debunk quote unquote me. You like I don't even know what to do. I'm just speechless.
They go on the attack because they see that you're debunking something that is their core belief, and that's why the same reason they will go after me. And I expose a lot of their racism because they will always say we are the party that fight against racism. We are the side that fight against racism. But when I say no, you actually supporting white supremacy by voting for the Democratic Party. Then I fell out of line. Like that's when I became at first I was the ally, and then I started speaking out against them, and all of a sudden they started questioning me. Right now, I do want to talk about this because I remember when you were talking about when you got your doctorate, you said something that was very funny because you are a U.S. and UK expert now, and I'm going to ask you more about this. You said something that was very funny because I actually saw when you were talking about this, where you had a lot of people who want to criticize Vietnam, as you mentioned, the Western chauvinists. Meanwhile, you criticize the United States, but at least you speak the language. Like at least you got people that criticize Russia, Vietnam, China, whatever, and they don't even speak the language. At least you, who are critical of U.S. Empire, at least you speak the language. So do you want to give us more?
At least I made the better attempt. Yeah. So the thing is that like I am not saying that if you can criticize Vietnam if you don't speak our language. I'm saying like there are lots of white people who claim that they are experts on countries like Vietnam and China and Cuba. Like I mean expert. Cap lock here, okay, capitalize here, experts. Meanwhile, they don't even speak our own language. So, since they don't speak our language, of course they cannot read our text in our own language. So, how can they be expert on us? And then, I am fighting against those fake experts. They're like, they they know nothing about Vietnam, but they act like they know everything. Literally, for example, there was a dude in Vietnam. He's white. He went to Vietnam and he wrote a book about the labor organization and cooperative in Vietnam, and he had a doctor of philosophy certificate in UK. He literally said this to my face that there are no cooperatives in Vietnam. Like, dude, what are you talking about? My mom is a member of agricultural cooperative. What are you talking about? Literally, my roommates, few years ago, they started a cooperative where they sold like children's, like babies' clothes. That's literally cooperative.
They say with so much confidence. They say with so much confidence, and they know their audience will believe them because they're the confident white guy.
Exactly.
And according to them, you're the crazy Vietnamese communist. Meanwhile, the white guy is putting her in her place. So they no matter they could say whatever, like they could say absolute bullshit, but as long as they say it and they're confident, their audience will automatically take their side, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, we literally have an official national document showing that we have about over 24,000 cooperatives in Vietnam. But, of course, according to some white doctor of philosophy from UK claim to be expert in Vietnam, there's no cooperatives in Vietnam. That's it. And I try to, fight against that. Like, dude, at least I speak your language, so I should be the US UK expert. Yes.
Yeah, and that's their mindset, their Western chauvinism. As I keep saying it, because they feel the need that they got to hold other countries responsible. Like your country, we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population. We got a lot to clean up here. They apologize for that, but then they want to grill you. And I see them do this to other people, like Palestinians who defend their country. They're Zionists, and they yell at them because they think they know the situation better than they do. The same white chauvinists, they would try to wag their finger and explain white supremacy to black leftists. They do it to me and Brown Joy Gray all the time. Vosh, he famously told me, he's like, yeah, I think black people should vote for their oppressors when I asked them. And I'm like, what do I say to that? When some guys say, yeah, I think black people should vote for their oppressors. What do you say? Like, there's obviously, like, they say you gotta shut up and fall in line. If anything's not perfect for you, that's not my problem. So I was explaining to them in clear language, like these people that dislike you, I know, like Ross, he was a big Biden bro, he was a big Biden voter. They will lecture us about white supremacy, but they voted for the guy who's responsible for the crime bill, the bankruptcy bill that stole our money and finances. So you got a guy who's probably the most anti-black politician in the modern era. But you want to say that you want to lecture me about white supremacy? You're a white dude in Beverly Hills, and I live the policies, and I see the similarities. Once again, we come from two different backgrounds. You're literally on the other side of the planet, but you see the similarities. I see it night and day, and they go after the people. They'll have friendly debates against people that is within the Overton window of acceptable dialogue. So Charlie Kirk can be crazy. Charlie Kirk is insane, but he will have friendly conversation and friendly debate with him
because they're both white.
Yeah, that too, that too. But he's within that respectable frame of dialogue. But us who challenge Western chauvinism, that challenge U.S. imperialism, that's out of bounds. So we got to be demonized as someone who's a bad faith actor. So I love to hear your perspective on that. Anything else you want to add on that, Luna?
Yes, we even though we are located on the other side of the earth, but we share the exact same experience. Lots of we people trying to white-splain about my own country in front of my face, and I was just like, wow, the amount of audacity.
The caucasity, as I call it.
The caucasity, yeah. Wow, the caucasity to white-splain and mansplain about my own home country to my own freaking face. Oh, Nick, but we have to be careful, though. Those will call us anti-white racists, so...
Oh, yes. The same people that will call us anti-white racists, they're the same people that will be like, oh my God, you guys always pull the race card. They They hate when people they hate when people pull the race card, but they are quick to pull the white racism card. Isn't that funny how that works? And one of the I'm kind of curious to get your reaction to this, Luna, because one of my favorite things I've been doing since I have a platform is exposing the racism of people who think they are allies. And I shared this a few times. I kind of want to get your response to this because this was during the entire debate on whether we should vote for the Democratic Party or not. And as someone who fell for that before, and I was done after voting for Barack Obama in 2012, never again. Like they are an anti-black white supremacist party, and people like Voss funnel people into that party, and then they have the nerve to criticize people like Luna. Like how does that make sense? But anyway, this is the mindset of the white savior that we criticize and that need to be criticized. Let's check this out. Check this out. This is a classic because this is an example of the caucasity we're talking about. I have explained and I wrote an op-ed in great detail why Joe Biden is one of the most racist public officials of all time. But this is their response, and this is the person who said the super quiet part out loud, but this is far from the only thing I got, guys. So check this out. This is their mindset, right? She said, I'm a white woman, and yes, I'm going to call your black ass Uncle fucking Tom if you vote for anyone but Biden Harris. Trying to rub shoulders with the same people who would have owned your ass for $1.75 years ago. For once, you need a history lesson 75 years ago. What? But anyway, it's not a good look. You're a racist against your own people. You guys see what we're talking about? Me and Luna not making this shit up. Me and Luna not making this shit up. What's your reaction to that, Luna? It's a lot thinking, isn't it?
There's a lot to unwrap here. Okay? So, they treat us like shit. You know? They treat us like shit. And once every 2 years, whenever there's a midterm or presidential election, suddenly they call us our people. Suddenly they include us into their people, quote unquote. It's like, oh, suddenly we are one of you now. And then suddenly when we don't vote for their white supremacists, beloved leader, we are like traitor of human race. This kind of mentality makes me sick. I don't have any better expression than I'm speechless. I
know it's hard to deal with, huh?
What to do.
Yeah, so at this channel, we're gonna make people uncomfortable, and we got a great audience. I love the audience that we have here, but it's like this is something.
No, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just so
I know.
Frustrated with white people. I can't stand it, dude. How can you survive there? At least I live in Vietnam. I have my own country, my own people, my own history.
I live in a deep red state. There's been rumors of KKK gatherings literally 10 minutes where I live. So like, people like, Nick, why you learn martial arts? If you're black, and you don't know martial arts. What the hell you doing? Like we gotta be strapped. You gotta be, and then I walk around without fear because I know I'm ready. And that's the reality, and that's what you gotta prepare people for. And I speak out against toxic positivity. So we having these tough conversations. We're making people uncomfortable because if you have this false positivity about this world, like, oh my God, racism is over. You're not gonna be ready when shit gets real. And I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the thick of it. I sold cars in Kansas, deep red areas, where I deal with not only racism from the average conservative, but the racism from the elitist liberal that I've been trying to shine a light on. Like, these are the most disrespectful people, classist people you ever meet. And that kind of go into what we were talking about earlier. There's a ton of classes, especially because you talk about like the harassment you get as a Vietnamese communist content creator. And I did a live stream with Savvy Sav from our Revolutionary Blackout sister a long time ago about the struggles that we have as a black content creator. That's why I'm just blown away, and that's why I love, and this is why I want to have this conversation. The similarities. This is why I want people to understand. There's so many similarities that so many of us who are fighting our oppressors have, and there's like this classism that I noticed where I will talk about white liberals from text from my leaders like Malcolm X. I'll hear like major people like Dr. Cornel West call out the imperialism of the progressives, call out white liberal establishment. But that's okay when they do that. But then whenever like a poor black person do it, they'll say, "Oh, oh my God, you're just trying to get attention. You're just a clout chaser." Like, no, I'm saying the same thing that Malcolm X and them say. You see how like there's this classism.
Yeah.
We got like 10 minutes left. So one last thing I do want to ask you is about like the state of the U.S. left, because you are an expert in U.S. politics right now, and there's like this giant like I wouldn't even call it a schism because it's a debate and separation that had to happen. And coming from a Marxist-Leninist perspective, I want to get your thoughts on like your theory of change and like and what you think the United States left is getting wrong. Because I talk to a lot of people on the international leftist coalitions. Like when you talk to socialists in the global south, when you talk to Vietnamese communists, other people who have successful revolutions, who've been successful fighting against imperialism, they look at U.S. left as like we're kind of a joke, and we're kind of are. Like the United States left advocates for voting for Joe Biden, and then they like, oh, we gotta take over different. It lacks no discipline. Like and you talk about this all the time, so I'm gonna kind of lob this up to you. Like, what do you think the U.S. left is doing wrong, and kind of what is your theory of change coming from your Marxist-Leninist perspective? Go ahead, Luna.
Okay, so I think that the biggest obstacle that leftists in the U.S. have to deal with, have to overcome, is false consciousness. Right now, is false consciousness, and that false consciousness attaches to white supremacism, racism, sexism, chauvinism, all kind of problems that in the course of indoctrination that you've been fed your whole life. So false consciousness means that like you fall into, first, because you don't have a proper education system, you don't learn about Marxism, Leninism, and communism, and how capitalism actually works. So, and you got like all the knowledge that you study, self-study, and the thing that you like being like seeing and observing your whole life, they conflict with each other. That is why it creates a false consciousness in your head. That is why many of you rather fell into the trap of idealism. Means that like you just sit there and think about the utopia, the society after the revolution, and how you're going to run that society. I see lots of leftists in the USA, in the West in general, keep like arguing and hating on each other because they don't agree with a single point about a society after revolution. Like my friends, my dearest friends, you can't even start a revolution yet. Why are you talking about this shit? It doesn't matter. The priority right now is to do something. Go out there, organize, start a movement. Start like, the dual power structure and have a revolution. And after that, we can talk about how to run a post-revolutionary society. But lots of you just fall into this trap. And this is a trap that just like make you sit comfortably in your armchair and hating on each other and make you feel like you are superior in theory, because like, oh, I am here, I can think of a perfect society and nobody can challenge me that. And if you don't agree with me, you're not real leftist. Like to people like us, born and living in Vietnam, yes, our socialist path, we did many things wrong. We did make mistakes, but at the same time, we also had many achievements. The first achievement is that we defeated imperialism and we had our own country, our own Marxist-Leninist nation to this day. And that is why I'm been saying like I am a dialectical materialist, means that I see things with comprehensive and historical viewpoint. I am aware that Vietnam still has many problems. We are not perfect, but at least we are a few steps further than you in the sense of having a successful revolution and running society after that. And this is my biggest critic against Western leftists. Lots of those people, they just sit there in their own crappy, overpriced apartment that owned by the rich landlord, and they sit there. And then they criticize Vietnam, they criticize socialist Vietnam by like, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you're trade of communism. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, if you really want to criticize it and you really want to know how hard it is to have a revolution and then to fight against US imperialism and to still survive, to stay in this capitalist hell world, go like do something over there, and after you have a successful revolution, okay, then come talk to me. And we would love for you to prove that Vietnamese are wrong. We would love for you to teach us how to run a socialist society or something like that. And that is the biggest problem that we see. Like, you're wasting so much time bitching on each other without like, doing anything.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say. I've been trying to elevate great voices instead of focusing on the clowns as much. And the situation that you just explained is the problem that we have, where in the United States people view leftism as a moral virtue. They're actually not viewing it in terms of policy, in terms of intellectualism. Like, where do you stand in terms of government power, worker power? That has nothing to do with it now. Like, their mindset is leftism is good, right wing is bad. And this is deeply unserious and anti-intellectual. This is why you guys should read Luna in her analysis on Marxism-Leninism. And this is why I've been trying to do this as well. Learn the difference between power struggles, between workers. Because as it is right now in the United States left, if you are a leftist, if you agree with me, you're on the right if you disagree with me. Right? And then they go after each other because if you're if you live a privileged lifestyle, you really have nothing that's really on the line. It's all about virtue signaling who is most down for revolution, not actually about creating change. So when Voss calls you out, or whenever these people try to virtue signal, pretend they know everything about social change instead of approaching a community built response where you come together and learn like we're doing here today. When you see that, you know it's all about ego. It's all about them saying, "Oh, I'm a leftist because I'm a good person." It's not actually about creating a movement, creating change, and that's the giant problem I see. I see people get mad because I just had a conversation with a bunch of anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist people I like to call leftists about like the truck convoy and where we differ on this. Like we should have conversations about an open dialogue, but now it's like we want to be in our own little bubble. And then we may release diss tracks. Like we come out with a diss track on YouTube. We're gonna slander this other person here just to increase our rating and views instead of actually having a conversation, which is what we've been trying to push back on. We do have a few super chats, and then we're probably gonna wrap up here very soon.
Nick, I have a really important piece of history that I really want to tell you. If you want to,
oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear it.
Yeah,
I would love to
it's
hear
about
it.
black people and union in the U.S. Just in case, maybe you know about this already, but just in case, in the
It'd be
U.S.
a great learning. It'd be a great learning opportunity. I would love to hear it.
Yeah. From like two outside, from like 1920s to all the way to 1960s, when the workers in the U.S. trying to unionize, the fact was that like white workers, when they try to unionize, they excluded all black workers, even though like black workers came to them and talked to them and wanted to join the white people's union. White people actually said no and dump all the black workers out of the movement. So when white unions workers had like a huge big strike, and then all the capitalists like hire black workers to work for them because white workers strike. Black workers, like, they were dumped out of the union, so like, and they were starving, so of course they took those jobs. And then white worker turned their back against black workers once again and blamed them like, you are the traitor of the movement. This is exactly, that's what just happened to you.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up because this is something I actually been trying to highlight. And me and Affinity, we've been saying all the time, like we need a movement that is black-led, indigenous-led, because we in the United States we are seeing the results of white saviorism and the white-led movement. And what you're describing is what we've been saying on the show, where you already had the white working class betray us multiple times. So when people ask me, why do I have these strong litmus tests? Like I ask people to support reparations, a strong black agenda, defunding the police. And if you don't do that, that's a red flag because that's a sign that you're going to sell us out later. And they already done that, Luna. The progressive movement already sold black people out multiple times. The progressive movement signed up and gave more money and power to the Capitol Police gave them more surveillance powers. So they sold us out to the police state when they supported the crime bill. They sold us out to the police state when they supported Hillary Clinton, and they did it again when they gave Joe Biden more money to give money to the police. So I love you brought it up, and I want to give you more time to explain that more in fact, because this is a problem that we've been going on for a very long time. We've been trying to educate people. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. EJ, my partner, is making a very big video about this. It might come next week, where he like documented all the writings from the 50s, from the 20s, all the way to the 70s about the union movement and how the racism between the union movement of white workers against black workers and how it intertwined with the propaganda coming from the United States. These are the knowledge that got buried because your state doesn't want people to know about this. And I am encourage you to go check out Non-Compete's channel, where he like literally will make a documentary to go to deep dive into this part of forgotten history of
Yeah,
the
I need
union
I
and the
need to learn
workers
more about
movement.
this because I explained the concept that there was just like this big debate, and feel free to add more to it. But there was a big debate among like the early communist and socialist movements among white workers on whether they should adopt Negro issues, and that was a giant debate that was going on for years. And we all know who won that debate, right? It didn't go well for us. And when people ask why you have a lot of black Marxist Leninists in the state that are much more militant about maintaining our community and maintaining our leadership, because historically it's been true that you guys negotiate ourselves out. So what happens is you may have a working class uprising that have good intentions, right? But then whenever there's a sign of you guys having progress, you guys go to the negotiation table and then you guys will cut us out. You guys will take benefits for yourself and leave us out of the table. This is literally what FDR did when he wrote us out of the New Deal, right? But
Yeah,
is there anything
yeah.
else you want to add to that, Luna? Because we got a few good questions to ask.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. That's such an important thing to discuss, and we don't reach our conclusion for no reason. And I'm all about allyship, right? If you're a white ally,
Yeah.
you're really in the struggle with us. We got nothing but love and respect for you. But
Exactly.
I don't even understand why you guys even want to be out in front. Like if we're fighting for something that mostly impact our community, why not let a black or indigenous person lead this? I got pushback from many white people on this. Oh my God, you don't want to include us in our movement? I never said that. You part of this movement with us, but why do you want to be? Why do you want to be in leadership of our liberation? You guys, that doesn't make sense. Like, why are you centering it around yourself? To me, that like when I stand in solidarity with my Latino brothers and sisters on ICE, I'm not trying to be the leader of that movement. I'm listening to my Palestinian brothers and sisters when they talk about Israel apartheid. I don't want to be the leader of that movement. So it never makes sense to
Exactly.
me why like white people would jump in front of our issues. They're like, oh no, you can't lead your own movement. No, we should, because if we don't, historically, you guys negotiate us out. So I love that you brought
Exactly.
that up. I love that you brought that up, Luna. It's such a great. We could have a whole other conversation on that alone, maybe. But
Exactly.
I actually have not read this article, so I can't provide any more context on this. But thank you for the $5. Wolf Report. You said thoughts on Ben Norton's article on the COVID convoy. I
I
think
haven't
Ben
read.
Norton. I haven't read the article, but I think his position is they're white supremacists, right? And they're not working for the working class.
Mm.
Um, I've been calling out the hypocrisies on both sides on this, because you have a lot of right wingers who pretend authoritarianism was invented in 2020, right? And now they're victims of police violence, and now all of a sudden it's the worst thing ever. But when we were getting our skull cracked, when they were tear gassing us and committing war crimes against Black Lives Matter activists, when they were stealing our resources, do you guys know in George Floyd protests they used to go to medic tents and steal our medic supplies, water, food? The shit they do in Ottawa is literally what they've been doing to black movements from day one. And I stand in solidarity against that. But there are a lot of people that's like anti-Black Lives Matter, but then now they want to support this. So I call out that, and I also call out the liberals who like, oh my God, all these people are white supremacists. No, you're a white supremacist because you vote for Democrats, right? So that's
Yeah.
I had a long discussion. We talked about it for like 90 minutes, right? I was on Frank Analysis, and like I said, I'm open for dialogue instead of like, oh my God, fuck this guy. So we talked about it. I think like when I was invited on, they thought I had a different opinion, and I thought they wanted to debate me. And then they heard my opinion. They're like, "Oh, actually, we actually agree on this." So anyway, check that conversation out with Franco. I talk about it much more. But I think this conversation is beaten to death. To be honest, with you guys, Luna, do you have anything you want to add? And I can move on to the next one if not.
Let's move on. This is a situation. The COVID convoy is too complicated,
Yeah,
and
it'll take a long time.
actually, it's a problem. Mostly problem white people. So I hope you can deal with it.
Yeah, there's so much we got. There's so much we got to talk about, Luna.
Yeah,
like
we
there's so
can.
much. We got.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to talk about this. It's so
Yeah.
complicated.
So I got a few more. I got a few more chats. I appreciate your
Yeah.
time. And then I'm gonna get. We'll get you out of here. Elephants on Coke for the $5. How socialist or capitalist is modern Vietnam? And do you think the distinction on whether Vietnam is socialist or capitalist matters? So this is a question for you, Luna. I'm assuming. Do you have any response to this?
I had a whole video where I answered this exact question in my video Is Vietnam Socialist on my channel. The thing is that there's no though we understand socialism as we call it like a socialist path in Vietnam right now that we are working on it. And socialism to us means that like you're moving a society from capitalism toward communism. Okay, that's like that path is called socialism. So it means that in the current state of Vietnam right now, 50 years after the war and just 15 years after the last embargo was lifted on Vietnam, socialism and capitalism are coexisting in Vietnam, and we are trying to uphold socialism to oppress against capitalism. The reason why we had capitalism in Vietnam right now is very long. But the basic understanding is that you need to understand that Vietnam tried to build a communist society right after the war from 1975 to 1985, and we failed. Mostly because we were terribly, comprehensively sanctioned by the USA. So we were bombed to the Stone Age. We would spray millions of tons of bombs and also spray like Agent Orange, all kinds of everything was destroyed. So we were heavily sanctioned after the war too. And in the 1986, we had to make a very hard decision where we had to open our economy, and we called it the đổi mới reforms, or the renovation as we called it, to try to open our economy so we can borrow money from World Bank and IMF to save millions of Vietnamese people from starvation at that time. So anyway, go check out my Is Vietnam Socialist video on my channel. Luna, you will have your clear answer.
Yeah, well said. Once again, I still got tons to learn from you, Luna. So let's go through the rest of each. Let's go through the rest of each show. We got a few more. Let's see where I left off. Thank you for $5. I'm a Democarian. Boss fans when he pals with ethno-state supremacists. Shrugs. Boss fans when he talks to anyone to his left. F and Tanky. Yeah, you see when they are 100% okay talking to other white people who they know are upholding Western chauvinism and white supremacy. But whenever someone like me and Luna Oy, they talk to us, I watched the Charlie Kirk debate out of pure curiosity. He was so nice and kind to him. But when I talked to Voss, she was immediately insulting me from day. He's like, yeah, we're not having a conversation. Let's yell and insult each other. And then when I yell and insult at him, they're like, oh my God, Nick didn't want to have a conversation. Like, no, he started out insulting me. So you see how there's different levels that they react to people. And you guys think we don't notice this? You think we don't peep that? You think we don't see these small slights? But anything else you want to add to that, Luna? We almost done here.
This says everything about them and nothing about us. That's it.
Absolutely. So one more. Thank you for the $2. Luna on patriotic socialism for Americans. I saw some people in the chat talking about this because apparently Jackson Hinkle and Haas, they advocate for like American patriotism, socialism. I don't know if you're like too familiar with that, but they asked you about that. Do you want to share your thoughts on that?
The thing is, my question to you is, what's in the concept of America that you feel patriotic for? America is literally a country built on stolen land, and they forced black people to enslave black people, took them out of their own home country, and put them here and enslaved them here. Like what? Hey, the thing is that I understand those people, they trying to follow the path of the global south countries, like to have the love for your motherland and for your people, and then from that you fight against the USA of the imperialism. But the thing is that like America is the country that is formed, built on slavery and stolen land. So I really kind of hard for me to understand the core value of patriotic socialists in this sense.
Yeah, and my take on this, I kind of explained earlier. I feel like as a Black American, I never did ancestry, none of this shit. 'Cause I don't really like whatever, man. I don't know what country I came from. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're a displaced people, right?
Yeah.
And there are people who have patriotism, and this is what a lot of Marxists talk about when they have patriotism for the country. This is their homeland, right? And as someone who is an African descendant of slave, I don't necessarily have a homeland that I know of. I could look it up. I know there's probably ways I can figure out exactly where in Africa I was, but it's like I'd rather move forward. That's just me personally. That's not no judgment. That's just me. So I personally never understood patriotism because once again I never had attachment to this homeland. Even with our shitty history that we learned, we still learned about slavery, and then we saw roots or whatever, and we see slaves getting beat. So at least in my community, there's like never this attachment to patriotism to the state of America. Like I never understood how that benefits me, right? I just don't see how that benefits me at all. But when I look at what Jackson and Haas is doing, and I actually manipulate conservatives a little bit doing this as well. And I don't know their exact position on this, but I see the strategy, especially because America is so conservative. You can try to flip patriotism against conservatives, where it's like, oh, you claim you care about the country, but the country is its people. The country is its people. So how can you claim to be a patriot if you don't support people having health care, right? So
Exactly.
that's kind of what I would use that line of attack, and that's actually pretty effective. Like using patriotism as a way to sell the idea of taking care of people. So am I patriotic to America? Hell no. Why the fuck, as a Black guy, will I be patriotic to this country? Do I love the people here? Yeah. I want my neighbors to be taken care of. Do you call that patriotism? I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really care. But I see what they're doing. I'm talking just from my perspective. I just don't understand the benefit of why I would preach patriotism, patriotic socialism. But I'm not necessarily against Jackson and Haas doing, because based on my interpretation of it, I think they're using it. And there are a lot of people who flipped out on them for saying this, but I think they're doing this to make socialism more appealing. That's just me. And if they're more successful in doing this, I guess okay, whatever. That's good. I just don't personally understand it. Do you have anything else you want to add, Luna? We got one more super check.
Yeah, it's just it's the same as you. I really don't understand it because, like, to me, like when they trying to uphold the American flag, the 13 stripes and the 50 stars. To people like me from Vietnam, that American flag is equal to genocide because the U.S. troops did so many atrocities under the name of that flag. So to many people like me, like us, it's just like another swastika flag. So like I
Might as
trying.
well. Might as well. Like who's been more responsible for more death and destruction than the U.S. empire over the last few decades? So might as well be a fucking swastika, right? But I don't like. There are people that are super pissed at them for saying that. I had Jackson on. I like Jackson. I think Jackson is good. Like I think I know what they're doing. I think I did. Like we can disagree with the strategy, but I think what they're trying to do, they're trying to make, because they're white. I don't think Haas is, but Jackson, he's a white guy. Then he's trying to make socialism more appealing for his community. I'm like, okay, if it works, that works. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
As a Black person, I just don't get it. Like it don't make sense for me. That's just my take on this. I see you guys really. We got a few more here. Thank you for sticking here with me, Luna. I don't know what currency that is, but thank you for that, Andrew. I guess the argument for patriotic socialism is that it could reach some. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. And when I talk to conservatives, I take advantage of that. Like if you're a conservative, you're like, I don't care if workers get paid more. I don't care if you get health care. How can you call yourself a patriot if you don't care if people don't die because they don't have health care? That doesn't make sense to me. So I called them out on that. but I think that's different than preaching patriotism, though, because I'm kind of taking advantage, and that's what Andrew was saying. So that's why I'm not mad at them at doing that. I just don't. I just wouldn't take. I think there's. I got my own approach. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. I guess my question is: are they really patriotic? I don't know. You had to ask them. I can't guess their
Ask them.
intentions.
Go ask them.
Yeah, but that's my guess. Like I know Jackson, and he speaks about the crimes of the U.S. empire, and he calls himself an American patriot. So I think this is my take as someone who knows Jackson. I think he's doing it to make socialism more appealing. That's just my take on it. So let's. We got a few more in here. Um, thank you for the $5. Any socialism in America needs to hold accountable. Sorry, any socialism in America needs to hold accountable our past and work to do better for each other and the world in the future. Patriarchy now. So pretty much you're saying if you're a socialist, you should want the better for humanity. Pretty much, like if you want to call that patriotism, whatever you want to call that, as long as you fight for my community, you showing solidarity, it's whatever. We can fight about the
If
like.
you're patriotic, you must support black nationalism or the land back of indigenous people, because
Great point.
if that's a sense of patriotism that you're talking about here, you have to support the people who want liberation for their own people.
Well said. That's such a great point, Luna. Thank you for adding that. And this is friend of the show, Susan. Thank you for the $20. She says awesome show. Yeah,
Aw.
we definitely got to do this again. We have so like we didn't even get to current events because I said we may talk about some current events when we have time, but we didn't even get a chance to do that because there's so much to talk about. I think that's the last super chat that we have here. But I've been last thing I want to say. I think we in our Q&A here. I mentioned before, I don't know what it would look like because I'm like I just want to plant the seeds. But as a leftist, I think our number one problem is the fight against the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, and the global neoliberal establishment, right? So that's why I want to have Luna Oy on. That's why I want to talk to her. That's why I continue to talk to professors out of China. I talk to Palestinian activists and professors because I don't know how we do it, but I really like we don't stand a chance at taking on the global neoliberal capitalism with only a movement that starts from California to New York. Like that's ridiculous. We need a global solidarity movement. The Black Panthers understood this. This is why they had multiple global solidarity networks as well. This is why
Exactly.
MLK talk about having global movements because I truly don't believe that it's possible without that. So the last thing I'm gonna ask you is kind of a very broad question, and it also serves as a closing statement as well. Do you see it being possible to like challenge global U.S. Capitalism? Do you see a U.S. A leftist coalition being possible on the international stage? And finally, what are your overall like message and where you would love to see the left move towards? So it's kind of like a final thoughts. Like, what direction would you love to see the left go to? So, and also any last things you want to promote or plug as well, Luna.
Sure.
Once again, it was a great
Yeah.
conversation. Love
Yeah.
having you on.
I'll talk about internationalism. One of the leader, Black Panther, in the 60s, sent like many letters to the National Liberation Front of Vietnam to offer help and solidarity and support. And it was really amazing that Black Panther did offer to send black soldiers to fight for communism in Vietnam. And we still have those letters. We still keep those letters in our museum, and I'm very thankful for that. And yes, I do think about thinking about what I want to see the leftist movement in the world and also in the USA. Let me see this. Let me think about this clearly. First, in the USA.
Yeah, I know it's a big question. So
It's a big question, exactly.
no rush, no rush.
So, okay, I talk about other countries first, and then I will go to the USA last.
Yeah.
So for the leftists in countries like Vietnam, Laos, North Korea, Cuba, and China, we are, as I said, a few steps ahead of the whole world. At least we still exist to this day, following Marxism, Leninism, following communism. So I hope that we can, keep fighting, keep surviving, and solidarity together to fight against U.S. imperialism and interventionism. And I do strongly believe that countries like Vietnam, China, Cuba, and Laos, and North Korea will survive well in this capitalist hellhole, especially during this pandemic. Just look at how the U.S. and the other Western countries deal with this pandemic. It's chaos. And so I have a pretty great hope for leftists in those countries. Above our the world's movement, I see that I have a biggest hope in comrades in Latin America, because I see clear sign of victory or somehow in Peru, Chile, Bolivia, and Venezuela too. Like, I do hope that they can keep that momentum and make it stronger. And solidarity with Latino comrades, and hope that they can have a wider and bigger, stronger movement. And especially Brazil too. Their election is gonna be this year, November, and I hope that they can vote out Bolsonaro, the literal fascist. So and about leftists in US, UK, Canada, Australia, I have a less hope for you. Because why? Because this. The thing is that the capitalist hegemony is so strong already, and you're living in the imperial core. You're literally living in the belly of the beast. So first you have to break out of that capitalist hegemony. You have to destroy your false consciousness, your white supremacism, your racism. And then only after that we can build up a strong movement, and somehow maybe future we can end the existence of the capitalist system like that. But it doesn't mean we Vietnamese, we believe in revolutionary optimism. Means that we always have to stay positive, in a sense that we have to study understand our current the material conditions, and then try to change the world so it can benefit the people. That is revolutionary optimism. Means that you have to believe it before you can actually work on it.
Yeah, I remember I actually responded to a comment before when some guy was like, you really think you're gonna get rid of capitalism? I'm like, not really, but what I'm gonna do? Just twiddle my thumbs and pray that it goes away by itself? We gotta have revolutionary spirit and this nonstop aggression and passion to fight. I don't see myself ever be like, damn, this is too hard, I'm done. And your assessment is spot on, to be honest. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but especially after witnessing the status of the U.S. left, when I look at the state that we're in, I'm like, damn, black people were fucked, indigenous people were fucked. Cause it's gonna be a very long time before we have a proper challenge on the powers that oppresses us. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna stop fighting. There are people.
Yeah, exactly.
And when someone was like, "You really think you're gonna end up?" I'm like, what is the implication? Do you want me to give up? There's no way I'm going to do that. There's no way our revolutionary leaders before us did that, and no way I'm going to do it. So I absolutely love your answer. And I know I talk about the International Anti-Imperialism Summit. My grandma died, guys, so that actually was pushed back quite a while. But I'm aiming for April, because we had the Jones Strike Summit last year. I want to have a coalition of internationalists. You guys gonna see Dr. Kareem Batesh, Dr. Peter Beattie, and Saul Raw. We're gonna have panels of internationalists who can debunk global capitalism and imperialism. And I would love to have you on there as well, Luna Oik. I think your perspective on Vietnamese communism. You taught me a lot of this live stream, and there's a lot more I can continue to learn from you. So hopefully this not last. We definitely want to have you back on the channel. Still a lot more to discuss. And this is my formal invitation for you to join.
Oh, thank you. I accept it.
Yeah, because we're throwing a superstar panel. We were aiming, because our 1-year anniversary is April as a network here. We should get to 15K before then, if you guys want to help us out. But so we're gonna have an international anti-war summit, similar to the Jones Strike Summit, but it's gonna be a bunch of people from a lot of different countries. I want them to talk about their background, how U.S. imperialism impacted them, what their theory of change is, get an update on the struggle that they're doing in their community. Imagine, once again, I don't know how this international coalition is going to work, but we got to start somewhere. Imagine we just start coming together and start talking about these issues, start understanding these kind of things. So that's my first vision. We see how it kind of span out from there. But it was great to have you on, Luna. Do you have anything else you want to promote? Anything else you want to plug? Like, make sure I got Luna's YouTube channel and everything in the description. So make sure you guys check it out. I've been learning a lot. So any last words? Any last thing you want to promote, Luna?
Thank you so much for having me. And I know that it's hard living in the West, especially in the USA, and other US, UK, Canada, Australia too. I know it's hard, but the thing is that like we all have to stay strong and keep fighting and keep a revolutionary hope. Just look at Vietnam. Vietnamese country in the modern history, we fought against colonialism, imperialism for over 100 years. And my grandpa literally died for it. He died before he even imagined that one day his granddaughter can be born in peace. But we still did it. Millions of Vietnamese will still stand up, and we successfully did it. That was why generations of Vietnamese people had died, so my generation can be born in peace. And finally, I can have a chance to talk to you guys about our own country. So revolutionary optimism is very important. And please wait for a few more days when my book is out, it's published. You can study very important and basic knowledge about this. So it will help you to build your own movement and to have hopefully your own revolution in the future.
Well said, Luna. Thank you for coming on. It was a great stream, and I appreciate everyone for watching. If you're new, please subscribe as well, because we upload every day. Please leave a like. It helps us out in the algorithm. Tomorrow, you guys see JB in the chat. JB always has great shows every Sunday for you guys. Nick and CJ show on Monday. We're gonna have special guest Ron Pacone. Ron Pacone joins us as well. We're gonna have Lee Camp join us on Friday. We upload every day, so please show support and support Luna as well. Go to her channel and subscribe to her. Thank you guys for watching. This is SocialistMMA signing out. Take care. Have a great